What is it that makes us truly necessary? One of the deepest human needs we have is to know that we matter to someone. It's what gives us a reason to get up each morning. But what if we didn't matter? The Torah anticipated this danger and built guardrails against it, and it did it with a really curious law. Do not cook a kid, a baby goat, in its mother's milk. You're listening to Torah in 7, a podcast where we examine one idea from the weekly Torah reading in 7 minutes. I'm Bela Olidort. Tissa is the parsha of second chances. It's where the people create the golden calf, a sin that had huge repercussions. When Moshe discovers this, he shatters the tablets. He implores God's forgiveness, and the people are forgiven. Moshe then carves new tablets, and God renews the covenant with the people. We can think of this parsha as the rebuilding of a moral society after its collapse, marked by the sin of the golden calf, which, on reflection, was not a rejection of God, but a confusion of boundaries. It was taking something humanly made and treating it as divine, taking matter and turning it into a god. So Tissa responds by expanding the distinctions, the boundaries that make a moral world possible between creator and creation, between human beings and what they produce, between what may be used and what must never be reduced to use. Let's dive in. The parsha begins with a census, drawing a boundary around the individual within the community. It describes the kiyar, the copper basin, drawing a boundary between the mundane and the service of God. It defines the ingredients of the holy incense, drawing a boundary around what is sacred and what is ordinary. It commands us to observe the Shabbat, drawing a boundary between holy and routine time, and also a boundary separating our being from our doing, reminding us that we aren't just components in a production line. We are souls who exist outside of our utility. The parsha then moves into the very fine print of the new covenant, and it drops a law that seems even more specific. You shall not cook a kid, a young goat, in its mother's milk. At first glance, this sounds like a technical rule of kashrut. But why does the Torah single out this particular one of all the laws of kashrut, and why does it use such vivid, concrete imagery? It could have just said, don't cook meat and milk together. Let's unpack it. Milk comes from a mother. Its sole purpose is to nurture life. Meat is what remains after life has ended. The commentaries point out the deep moral dissonance in taking a life-giving fluid and using it to process a death. The Zohar takes this further, calling milk the white of kindness and meat the red of severity. It's a mixing of categories, and the Torah is telling us, do not use what gives life to take life. From this one specific prohibition, the law is then widened to keep meat and milk separate altogether, ensuring that we never violate these boundaries. The idea behind this principle of separation can be traced back to the opening chapters of Genesis, where each species is defined limino, according to its kind. In Breshit, the Torah commands us to work the world, to create, to innovate, and master it, but never by erasing the essential identity of God's creations. That's where the laws of kilayim, mixed species, come in later in the Torah, like the law that forbids yoking an ox and a donkey together to plow a field. An ox is strong, a donkey is smaller and slower. When you bind them together, you're violating each one's individual identity. It forces a creature to be something that it is not. And this is a corruption of nature. In the late 19th century, H.G. Wells imagined what happens when this instinct is ignored. In his book, The Island of Dr. Moreau, a scientist reshapes animals into something like humans, forcing them to walk upright and mimic speech. They suffer because their bodies are changed, but their nature isn't. Wells understood that when you refuse to let a being remain what it is, you damage it. But today, the danger isn't that we are turning animals into humans. It's that we are turning human relationships into simulations. With the great strides in artificial intelligence and technology, this now matters more than ever. Think, for example, about elder care. Instead of a grandchild visiting, an elderly person is given a companion robot. The robot listens patiently and responds kindly. It doesn't get tired. It doesn't have to leave. But consider what this really means. The individual, the grandmother, or the patient is no longer treated as someone who belongs in a network of human obligation, but rather as a problem to be managed efficiently. It replaces a real relationship with a simulation. But a robot does not owe us loyalty. A program does not carry obligation. A simulation cannot replace a relationship. It not only reduces the grandparent or the patient, it reduces the son, the daughter, the grandchild, with all the humanity that they bring to the relationship, to utility. It says that they only matter for what they do, not for who they are. And if the robot can do it better, the child is unnecessary. Think of the damage that does to our humanity. By reminding us to honor creation limino, according to its species, the Torah is teaching us that a human being is not a tool and a relationship is not a convenience. It doesn't allow us to offload the human aspects of our identity, care, judgment, and presence to an artificial device. Parshat Ki Tissa asks us to recognize that we matter because we are human, not because we're efficient, not because we're productive, just because we're human. That alone is what obligates us to others and others to us. A society that remembers to respect what things are, a society that refuses to blur the nature of God's creations, will never find people unnecessary. That's one takeaway from Parshat Ki Tissa. If you found this meaningful, please subscribe, share, and comment. And if you'd like to sponsor an episode, please email me at editor@lubavitch.com. Shabbat Shalom.